Hello everyone, welcome back to Tartan Samurai Gaming. And today it's another classic of the beat 'em up genre, Final Fight. So, quick rundown of the story here. The mayor, Mike Hager, is one of the three characters you'll play as, who is after the gang that controls the criminal activity in the city. But they have kidnapped his daughter. So he is the leader of the Mad Gear gang. So there's our two other heroes, Cody and Guy. And now it's time to go and take down the Mad Gear. So let's go with Hager. We like the big power characters in this game. So simple controls here. There's an attack button, there's a jump button. Press the two of them together to do your special move, which in Hager's case is a spinning lariat. Pick up bonuses as you go. And interesting fact about Final Fight, this was originally supposed to be Street Fighter 2, sort of. The original Street Fighter game came out in 1987 and was, despite its flaws, it was well received at the time. So Capcom immediately wanted a sequel, but they thought, let's do a side-scrolling sort of Double Dragon style thing instead of another one-on-one fighter. And so Final Fight was created, and it was originally titled Street Fighter 89, which was the year it was supposed to come out. But in time they realised it would be better to continue with the theme of one-on-one fighting for the Street Fighter franchise, and so Final Fight was made its own thing. But over the years things became kind of full circle as a lot of the Final Fight characters and lore made its way first of all into the Street Fighter Alpha series, and then later on into the Street Fighter series proper. Not just the heroes, but also some of the villains of this game as well made their way into Street Fighter. Albeit with some of the names and backstories changed in order to fit the lore. So we're coming up on the first boss here, I think. Yep, there he is. I think this was also one of the first fighting games to give each of the enemies individual names. Of course, this is something that Streets of Rage 2 would later continue. But interesting, just little elements which didn't probably seem like much at the time, but have really kind of informed the genre over the the following 30 plus years. So. We'll continue with Mike for the time being. And the boss is down. So round one is clear. And we move into the subway for round 2. And if you played the recent Power Rangers Rita's Revenge game, there's a direct homage to this level and the boss in that game, where you, towards the end of this level, you'll fight a boss called Andore, who is quite clearly a reference to Andre the Giant, the WWF wrestler of the time. And in the Power Rangers game, they actually had 2 putty patrollers in the train level wearing that same costume that our man here, Andore, is wearing. That kind of leotard with a chain. So it was quite clear who they were getting at. Nice little nod to the origins of the beat-em-up genre there. Okay, so we now move actually onto the train. It's funny how in 30 years the inside of subway trains really hasn't changed at all, has it? Yeah, it's all very well saying go forward, but I can't when there's bad guys in front of me, can I? Okay, Andore is down. Almost. Now he's down. Okay. And you can see that a lot of these villains, very, very similar, shall we say, inspiration was drawn for the some of the villains in Streets of Rage 2, particularly. Alright, let's try Guy. Guy is your fast, flexible character who is definitely less powerful than Mike Haggar, but can put a lot more combination attacks together more quickly. So it's a trade-off. And with his, martial arts skill, Guy is the one who obviously made the transition into Street Fighter the smoothest, in my opinion. Let's see what Guy's special move is. Oh, it's a tornado kick. Nice. Okay. And the train has stopped. So now we get out onto the tracks to continue the fight. You'll notice that whenever you hear a barrel breaking, it is the same sound effect that was later reused in Street Fighter 2 for the barrel breaking bonus stage. Just a little bit of trivia for you there. These franchises are forever interconnected, even down to the sound effects. I think some of those punching and striking sounds also feature in Street Fighter at some point. Now we're on to the boss. And this is Sodom, who would make his first appearance in the Street Fighter series in Street Fighter Alpha. They kind of redid his backstory to make him into this sort of a comedic figure as a foreigner who's obsessed with Japanese culture and wears samurai attire all the time, and he also, like, all of his sort of post-round announcements, you know, when he like mocks the person for beating them, it was all using really badly phrased, like grammatically incorrect Japanese, and he had like the kanji, what he thought was the kanji for foreigner on his shirt, but it was actually the kanji for death. There's lots of little in-jokes with the Sodom character, which are quite good. It's clearly done as a parody of that sort of subculture of people who get just a little bit too into the whole Japan thing. And round 2 is clear. And this was the origin of the car braking bonus game in Street Fighter. It started off in Final Fight. So we've only got 12 seconds left. We have to get a move on here. I think we can do it. And the car is wrecked. We've done it.
Oh my god!
Oh dear. Poor guy got his car wrecked for no apparent reason. So more of these Andre the Giant type villains here. And he was repurposed into a fighter in, I think it was Street Fighter 3 or Street Fighter 4, called Hugo, who was basically the same design, but obviously they couldn't use the name Andre because it was a bit too on the nose who they were parodying. Let's try Cody. Cody would be the inspiration for Axel in Streets of Rage later on as well. As you can see, same clothes, same haircut, similar fighting style. Good punches, good movement, but kind of weak jump. Also very kind of reminiscent of Street Fighter 2, all these sort of background characters just kind of casually hanging out and watching the fight. That was something that would play quite a big part in the background designs for Street Fighter 2 as well. So what is Cody's special again? Let me remind myself here. Oh, it's another tornado kick. Okay. I think the special moves are primarily for crowd control. Like if you're surrounded by enemies, you can use them to clear the decks a little bit. Oh, that's gonna hurt. And again, that flame effect, if you look at the effect there when the enemies get burned by the flame, it's the same effect that you see when in Street Fighter when you get hit with Dalsim's Yoga Fire or with M. Bison's Psycho Crusher. So again, reused assets. Final Fight really being a template for Street Fighter 2 in so many ways. Oh, what's this guy doing? Okay, into a cage fight. I can handle that. Oh, that's gonna hurt. Dear. Right, we'll stick with Cody for now. Well, I'm tempted to go back to Guy next time around, I think, because he was the one I was having the most success with. And Andre is down. So now we get to move to the next part of the nightclub area. Ah, poison. So this pink-haired lady here is Poison, and bit of an interesting backstory to that character because I think it was the Super Nintendo version of the game, if I remember correctly. I could be getting this wrong, but basically I think it was either Nintendo or some other company had an issue with female characters getting hit during the course of the game. So they wanted the Poison character removed, and Capcom were of course reluctant to do that, so they just turned around and said, oh, it's actually not a woman, it's a trans person. And you know, that was a bit a bit inappropriate then as it is now, but that was their rationale. So to this day there is a debate about what exactly is Poison's gender. Identifies as female, and you know, most people would recognize her as female looking at her, but there is that, you know, I mean, it wasn't really, they weren't, it wasn't Capcom making a stand for transgenderism or anything like that. It was just, they were just trying to have an excuse to include the character in the game without having to change anything. But Poison does have quite a big following in the LGBT community as a result, and good for them. I think she's also crossed over into Street Fighter at different times as well. You can see the volume of enemies is starting to increase here as we make our way through the levels, and we're going to watch out for these flames. Thankfully you do get like a couple of seconds grace period from them appearing on screen to you having to avoid them. Fire elements are quite difficult to avoid, but with Guy having the best jumping ability in the game, he's probably the best character for this situation. Albeit I am making a right mess of this at the moment. But anyway, we've cleared that now. On we go. Yeah, let's have some food. I've said this before during my Streets of Rage playthroughs, whatever, but there is something uniquely satisfying about grabbing an enemy and throwing them into multiple other enemies just to kind of, you know, have a screen-wide attack. It's satisfying. Like so. Dear. Getting a bit of a kicking on this level. But we move on now. And of course the obligatory elevator level. No beat 'em up is complete without one. Okay, there we go. Getting quite piled on with the enemies here, and here's another character who would later move on to Street Fighter, Rolento, a somewhat crazed military vet type, basically based on, you know, that the sort of a crazed military commander type that was an archetype in a lot of movies about the Vietnam War and things like that. Quite a decent character. I think he made his debut in Street Fighter Alpha 2, if I remember correctly, and he was yeah, tough fight. As you can see, it's not exactly a cakewalk here either, but we are making progress. And he's down. Round 4 is clear. Only 2 to go. Bonus stage. So I think this is a homage to the Karate Kid with the scene where you had to shatter the ice blocks, if you remember. And we're clear. Perfect. It was Karate Kid 2, wasn't it, where he had to shatter the sheets of ice, if I remember right. Okay, now on to the Bay Area. Music here is quite reminiscent of Mercs, which was another Capcom game that came out round about the same time. This sounds a lot like the music from the final level of Mercs. I just noticed that. Perhaps it was probably, almost certainly actually, it was the same sound designers that would have worked on both games, I guess. And they might have reused a riff or two here and there. Oh, there's a little dog. Again, just a nice little background thing. Doesn't actually serve any purpose in the game, but just, oh look, there's a cute little dog amidst all the gratuitous violence. Let's go with Cody this time. That little dog's adorable, isn't it? Here I am fighting all the street thugs and I actually don't want to, I just want to go over and pet that dog. lots of freebies here. So anything that's not a food item is basically just for points. So you notice there that using your special move does drain a little bit of health, so you have to be careful with it. Again, that was a mechanic that would later be reused in the Streets of Rage 2 and 3, but Final Fight was the originator of it. It really is amazing actually to think of all the different, very simple game elements we take for granted that Final Fight started. I mean, just this idea of, you know, walking through and fighting various different villains. I mean, Double Dragon did it before, but Final Fight was the first one to do it on this scale with this level of graphical detail, and yeah, it really was truly a trendsetter amongst games. It really did kind of set the stage for a whole genre of games that still continues till today. We'll stick with Cody, I think. Another happy doggy. They've made the public toilets look suitably grubby, that's art imitating real life there, I guess. There we go. Now moving on. Oh, no, we still have a few more to take care of. Oh, it's frustrating when that happens in these games, when you get knocked out right in front of a life power-up. But we will leave them there for the time being until we've taken out this crowd. No, we're not moving on yet. We have to go and get that chicken first. There we go. Now we can move on. Go, lovely. Of course, I'll bet there's a health power up in that barrel, almost certainly. Oh, actually no there isn't. Okay, I don't feel so bad now. Ooh, pineapple. Another doggy. And again, even this early on in the genre, you can see that there's that trope of one guy attacks you from the front, and while you're fighting him, his teammates will sneak around behind you and try and put in some jabs from behind. Just got to the chicken in the nick of time there. Right, let's use some of these knives to our advantage if we can. Oh dear, these guys are incessant. There we go. Right, I think that's what we should have been doing right from the start, was just using the knives to keep them at distance. And there we go. Okay, we're getting close to the boss now. Abigail, he's another one that I think... Yes, he was in, I believe, Street Fighter 6 or Street Fighter 5 maybe? But he underwent a bit of a redesign obviously to try and distinguish him from the Andore character. I think when he starts to flash red, that's your cue to get right out the way. Oh, this is a tough one. His health hasn't even turned yellow yet. Oh dear. This is going to take a while. Okay, right, okay, his health's yellow now, so we're making progress. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Okay, that was better. He actually seems to be most vulnerable when he's doing that charging attack. Okay, that's interesting. One thing I really miss from this game, from having played Streets of Rage a lot recently, is any sort of dash mechanic. There is no way to like rush down, which obviously was something that would come later on with these types of games. Obligatory Capcom ads in the background there. Okay, we're moving into the Mad Gear headquarters now, I believe. Oh, that's gonna hurt. Right, let's go for Guy. I think some speed is what's needed here. Speed and agility. And he's down. So we're moving up the levels now. Again, this is something that was kind of redone in the first Streets of Rage game, because the final boss level in that game also had you fighting at the top of a large office tower. Of course, as fans will know, when the game was ported to the Super Nintendo, it was a console exclusive at the time, and that was what prompted Sega to make Streets of Rage, to kind of have their own version of Final Fight. But the Super Nintendo version was not perfect. It originally omitted Guy as a playable character. They only had room for 2 characters. They went with Cody and Hagar, as they were the 2 most popular characters at the time. But after various fan outcry, eventually they released Final Fight Guy, which was a separate game, I think about a year later, and it allowed you to play just as Guy. So if you were that into playing Final Fight as Guy, you could, but you would have to buy another cartridge to do it. Well, they're saying that the Super Nintendo port of Final Fight is superb. It's, you know, not arcade perfect by any means, but it really does well for an early Super Nintendo game. As does Street Fighter 2 World Warrior, for that matter. That's another game that was converted superbly. Yeah, with Capcom ports, I would say that Nintendo definitely got the better of the early versions in terms of arcade accuracy and whatever. With the exception of Strider, which I don't think ever came to the Super Nintendo. So Sega wins that one by default. Oh. And yes, if you don't press start in time, your guy will get blown up by a time bomb. That is how that's how this game plays. It goes hard. Okay, let the chandelier fall, and on we go. I wonder why these guys are wearing pointed-toed slippers. Interesting fashion choice. Guy's hand speed really is a big advantage against these bigger brute enemies, because he can get the jab in where other characters couldn't. What you're going to do is get under the shadow and then get out of the way and time if you can, but easier said than done. Okay. Yeah, Guy's jab seems to be a good way to sort of cancel incoming attacks. He's got that speed that he can just interrupt other attacks from slightly slower characters. I guess it's just the frame rate or whatever what you would call it. The startup frames of Guy's attacks must be slightly lower than the enemy characters. So Guy wins most of the 50-50s. Yeah, I mean, it's still not an easy game, but this game definitely does feel a lot easier when you're playing as Guy. He said as he got knocked over. I really need to stop doing that. Oh. Poison and friend. Almost clear here. Right, Elgato is down, and we move on. Maybe coming close to the end here, I think. These pillars make it a little bit difficult to see the enemies coming. Again, that interrupting jab from Guy is very useful. As long as you're not getting double teamed like that. Oh dear. Again, this is arcade difficulty playing its hand here. That just felt very unfair. One more hit should take down under it. There we go. Chicken. Oh, and there's our final boss, Belger, and you can see he's got Hager's daughter hostage there. So we want to beat him down as quickly as we can. He does have a rather nasty crossbow though. You've got to do your best not to stand in direct line of fire with this guy, or he will just rip you a new one. But we're making good progress here. Probably one more continue would do it. And he's down. And he's probably not going to be in the sequel. And so Jessica is safe. Oh. Oh, isn't that sweet? And so that concludes our playthrough of Final Fight. Hope you enjoyed that. A nice little trip down beat 'em up memory lane. If you did enjoy this, then please check out some of our other playthroughs on the channel. We do have the likes of Streets of Rage 1 and 2, Streets of Rage 3 will follow soon, and various other arcade classics such as Cadillacs and Dinosaurs as well. So be sure to check out the links on screen, and I will see you here on Tartan Samurai Gaming next time.